Yeah, guys, this is an epic disaster, and that's not hyperbole. This is one of the worst Supreme Court rulings, and we're all in huge trouble.
Another huge gift to corporations and special interests, and dealt another major blow to regulatory agencies in the process. In a decision released earlier today, the Supreme Court overturned long-standing precedent that granted deference to federal regulatory agencies to interpret and enforce laws passed by Congress. The decision is being described as one of the most far-reaching and disruptive rulings in the history of the court. The ruling is extraordinary in every way, a massive aggrandizement of judicial power based solely on the majority's own irritation with existing limits on its authority. After Friday, virtually every decision an agency makes will be subject to a free-floating veto by federal judges with zero expertise or accountability to the people. Now, Elena Kagan took aim at conservatives in her dissent, writing, "In one fell swoop, the majority today gives itself exclusive power over every open issue, no matter how expertise-driven or policy-laden, involving the meaning of regulatory law. As if it did not have enough on its plate, the majority turns itself into the country's administrative czar." Supreme Court ethics group United for Democracy slammed this decision in a statement. This is a gift to the Koch network. This is a gift to Harlan Crow and Leonard Leo and all of these people who are paying for the justices to go on private jets and to sail on yachts to Bali. These same people who are paying Clarence Thomas's relatives school tuition. These are the same people who want Chevron deference to be overturned. This decision today is a gift to those benefactors. This decision comes on the heels of yesterday's decisions limiting the EPA's power to regulate polluters and the SEC's ability to crack down on securities fraud. Now, this Chevron defense precedent has been in place for 4 decades or so, Cenk.
Yep.
I'm curious, this is just, it is so transparent. This is what the right wanted. They finally got it, and this just opens the door to total government corruption, total corporate corruption.
Yeah, guys, this is an epic disaster, and that's not hyperbole. This is one of the worst Supreme Court rulings, and we're all in huge trouble. So let me explain why.
Thanks for watching. Our audience has helped build TYT into the media giant it is today. Together, we can accomplish anything. Support our work and join us at tyt.com/team. So
this applies, the Chevron ruling, which is from 40 years ago, said when a piece of legislation is ambiguous, that's when it applies, right? Somebody's got to decide, what does it mean? You can't go back to Congress because they already wrote the bill. They're not going to get a new bill. You're trying to interpret the bill they already wrote, right? And there is no structure to go back to Congress. That's not a thing that exists. So somebody's got to decide. And in Chevron, back in 1984, the Supreme Court said, well, obviously the regulators should decide what it means, because that's literally their job, is to figure out, hey, did Congress mean this or that? And how do we do the best we can in interpreting what Congress intended? So that was very rational, and that made things run a little bit smoother, etc. Now, what the Supreme Court is saying is, no, the regulators shouldn't decide. The courts should decide. Now, that has 2 giant problems. Number 1 is, even before it gets to the courts, that means it's going to kill most of the regulation that exists, or new regulation that would be proposed. Why? If it's in this very large bucket of ambiguous. The reason is because it's so much more money to go to the courts. So you're only going to do that in a limited number of cases. It's going to take longer, giant bureaucracy, cost the government a lot of money. So they're not going to want to take it to the courts. And so then they're not even going to do the regulation. Okay, they made it to the courts, but the courts are so much more conservative than a fact-based person whose job is to regulate a certain industry. Now, the right wing has made the word regulation dirty, but the reality is regulation just means law. That's all it means. It's law and order. So why do they make regulation a dirty word, but law and order not a dirty word? Because regulations apply to corporations. And this government is run by corporations. The donors have taken over everything. And so Jordan's absolutely right. This is return on investment for Harlan Crow and all the people who paid for those luxurious vacations and houses, et cetera, for Clarence Thomas, Alito, and the others. Because now none of their businesses are gonna be regulated. So what does that allow them to do? Why are they so happy about it? They're happy because then they have less costs. And then if you think, well, less costs doesn't sound so bad, but why do they have less costs? Because now, instead of figuring out a way to get rid of their pollution, they just dump it in the river your kids swim in, or that your kids get the water from. Instead of having to figure out, well, what do I do with all this toxic sludge? Oh, I know, I'll just put it in the air, the water, the land, et cetera, because there's no more regulation. Oh, what am I gonna do with my workers? It's extra cost to make sure that they're safe. So you know what, if we're running an assembly line where your hand could get chopped off, let's not do the extra safety ones because it'll save us a lot of money. It'll cost a bunch of workers their hands, their arms, and maybe even kill some. But hey, I got to save money. The point of the government is to protect us. It is its #1 job. That's why cops, military are cited by both the left and the right as a very, very core of the government's responsibility. But what are regulators? They're cops for Wall Street, for corporate America. And if those examples didn't do it for you, how about Wall Street? If you don't put any cops on Wall Street, if you don't put any regulators, they're just gonna do insider trading. They're going to break every rule and regulation there is. And what does that mean? That means like they're gonna charge you more when you have a late fee. They're gonna do every little trick there is to rob you more and more and more through banks, credit cards, companies, and every other way that you could possibly imagine, and in ways you can't imagine, because there are no more cops. This is basically defunding the police for Wall Street and corporate America. And it's an epic disaster. It puts all of us in danger. Mondo.
Yeah, I think you said a mouthful and everything that needs to be said about this. I will add though, this is actually taking the when you use the police analogy, that was actually a great one because the police departments in this country were not always policed and owned by the states, right? The police departments, the first police departments at the slave patrol were to when businesses hired police to protect their interests. And it seems that the Supreme Court has taken on the role as police for business in this decision. This is absolutely a disgusting decision for so many reasons. People forget that we have laws that prevent kids from working in factories. Those are regulations. We have weekends because of regulations. And we have a 40-hour work week because of regulations. I don't know what this leads to except for more deaths at work and also a dirtier economy, a dirtier environment, and more money for the top folk that are paying for our judges to show up in the way that they show up.
Yeah, and so Republicans, especially Trump and his guys, pretend to be populists these days. Populist? This hurts the average American more than anything you could imagine. By the way, they could also steal your wages. There's no regulation. Oh, you know what? You worked this many hours? I don't think you did. I'm gonna give you less hours. You wanted this wage, this. There's 1,000 ways to rob you blind if there's no cops. And so these are all Republican appointed judges. So while they pretend to be populists, it was 6-3. All the liberal judges said, protect the workers, protect the communities, protect the families, protect the average American. And the conservative justices appointed by Republicans said, hell no. Protect companies, protect donors, protect the wealthy, protect the guys who are paying for my luxurious vacations. I'm gonna go to a vacation next. How do you think that guy made money? By robbing you blind. So he shares a little bit of the corruption with me. And so I give him this unbelievable gift at the expense of the American people. And the things that Mondale were saying were not outrageous examples. What are they gonna take away the weekend? Well, one of the core things that these regulations did was protect us from child labor. We have child labor laws, so you don't send 12-year-olds into coal mines, because they used to. Guess what? Now, in states across the country, Republicans are proposing bills to repeal the child labor laws because it's over-regulating, and they want the kids to have the freedom to get their hands chopped off on an assembly line or to die of cancer in a coal mine. It's disgusting. It's an attack on the average American, and you should know it for what it really is.
Yeah, I think the problem, as it's laid out in a piece by Molly Coleman in Balls and Strikes, is this is really going to show its head in cases where you have a Democratic administration and the case goes before a conservative justice, or a judge rather. And Leonard Leo, like we mentioned, has been working behind the scenes for years to pack the federal judiciary. But in this piece, she gives an example of what this would look like. What are judges going to do when they're looking into, let's say, an environmental regulation. She writes, how would forever chemicals be regulated? Don't ask the scientists who understand these chemicals' harmful impacts on humans and the environment. Ask Justice Neil Gorsuch, whose expertise is such that he recently authored an opinion about EPA regulation of nitrogen oxides while repeatedly referring to nitrous oxide, better known as laughing gas. And this just, we shouldn't put the job that we have experts in the administration, in a federal position to do, in the hands of unelected partisan judges. It's just a recipe for disaster. And then on this doctrine, the lever looked at Clarence Thomas's evolution, if you want to call it that, over the last 20 years, and here's what they found. Thomas wrote a landmark Supreme Court opinion upholding the doctrine in 2005, but began questioning it a decade later before eventually renouncing his past opinion in 2020 and claiming that the doctrine itself might be unconstitutional. Of course, during that time, Thomas also took $4 million in gifts from people like Harlan Crow, who has a direct interest in overturning that doctrine. Well, he got it now. And Harlan Crow, who was the co-founder of the Club for Growth, also put $5 million into Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation. Same thing, the same position. So you can see a through line. They're not giving these people gifts. They're not paying for their relatives' tuition or buying them homes or paying off debts, taking them on vacations because they like their personality. They're doing it because they want something from these justices, and today they got it.
It was an investment, and that investment unfortunately turned out to be a wise one because they bought the Supreme Court.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members, because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.